Hello everybody, my name is Levi, and welcome to the room tour for 2019. A lot of you have been asking me about this for probably longer than I'd like to admit, and after all the waiting, it's finally here. So, let's get into it. So to start, here we have the back half of the room. This is the half of the room that's less so a studio space and more so a bedroom. Over here on the right is a shelf that I have for both company and pets. Up on the top is a bunch of just snacks and drinks, so whenever I have company over, they can easily just grab something. I have a section where I keep the pillows and the blanket on my couch when they're not in use. And then at the bottom, I have all of the stuff for like any kind of messes or cleanup, as well as anything I might need for taking care of pets. Just to the left of that is my dresser, and then on top of that, I have a cage for rats and a cage for Bunky, who is my rabbit. The rat cage on the right is actually empty right now. It's just that it's really hard to disassemble, and I want rats again, so I'm just leaving it set up in hopes of being able to fill it again sometime soon. On the left is Bunky. He's not normally indoors, but during the colder months, we bring him inside so he doesn't have to deal with all the cold. And to the left of that, I have a bunch of miscellaneous shelving, some smaller items that I don't really have a place for otherwise, a bunch of scented candles, my backpack, my coat, a few boxes for products that I have, and at the bottom of that is a shelf with a bunch of games on it. At the very back of the room is my door, where I have some posters from the SNES, the NES, the Sega Genesis. I have some Shovel Knight artwork I made, a few pieces of memorabilia from my time in band, and some hats. And the last thing on this side of the room is my bed. It's part of a bunk bed, so I can actually raise it up really high so I have a clear view of the TV from across the room. But also, when I was in the dorms about 3 years ago, I had a huge shelf that I had in there because I couldn't wall mount anything. And it's also raised up because I have to somehow store that shelf, but there's also a bunch of other storage under there. Up above that, I've got all kinds of posters, my favorite being the one on the far right, which is actually a big frame filled with all of the pictures I took at Con Bravo and a little poster in the middle signed by everyone I met at Con Bravo. A lot of these posters that you see on the left side are all from the same place. They're from an Etsy store called Espionian Posters, and they're my favorite posters in the room. I've gotten so many kinds of posters at so many sizes from so many places, and these are by far my favorite ones. The colors are the most vibrant and they feel the most durable. Right now they actually have a sale on their store where it's buy two, get one free. So definitely check that out, links below. And now on to the front half of the room. Right here is the wall filled with all kinds of memorabilia and merchandise that I've picked up or made throughout the years, as well as some of the seating. Right in the middle of the room is where I keep the double recliner. This is where we normally sit whenever we want to play something on the TVs as opposed to the PC. To the right of it is yet another wall full of posters. In between that and the TVs is where I keep a lot of my collectibles. In the lower section I have two shelves filled with a lot of the smaller items. This is where I have special editions to some games, displays for all of my music CDs, and my favorite video game series ever, the Mario RPG franchise. I've got a bunch of plushies, and there's even some stuff from Metroid that I made. Up above that I have several video game weapons, as well as a few of my art projects. Up at the top of that is where I store the majority of my amiibo on a custom-made shelf. At the very top is where I keep the Sword of the Six Sages, as well as the boxes to most of my consoles. There's also a few clips in the ceiling in case I want to hang up a blue screen or a green screen. And here at the very far end of the room is all of the technology, more or less. There's the TVs, the PC, the consoles, pretty much anything that you would usually see me using on the stream, or anything that is often behind scenes since the camera's usually not pointed at it. To start, up on top, I have my PC, which is typically 3 monitors, but I can add in the main TV in the center as a fourth if I need it. On the left, I have a CRT for any kind of retro games, because they just look and run far better on there. And right in the center of all that is the consoles. So I've been collecting these for really not as long as most people. I've only had 1 or 2, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. But I've gradually been adding them in. That way I don't have to worry about any kind of limitation whenever I want a game. In total, there is anywhere from 25 to about 40 consoles here.
The reason that number is a variable is because if you include things like backwards compatibility or owning duplicates of a console. But in general, there's around 25 to 30 instances of a unique console. On the first shelf, directly underneath the TV, I have the Nintendo Switch. Right behind that is the Wii U gamepad, and all around that are the various rechargeable controllers that I have. One level below that, I have the Wii U, one of my Wii's, the central speaker to my surround sound system, my Nintendo 64, a Retron 5, which doesn't actually work anymore, but that would be playing NES, Famicom, Super Nintendo, Super Famicom, Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, Game Boy regular, and Sega Genesis, if it did work. The next shelf down, I have a PlayStation 4, a PlayStation 3, a PlayStation 2, and a PlayStation 1. And under that, I have the Xbox One, the Xbox 360, and the Xbox Original. Just over to the side of that, I have the Sega Genesis, the Sega Dreamcast, and then a GameCube with the Game Boy player attachment, which lets you play the Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Original games. And right to the far left is my main box for the sound system, and on top of that I have the NES Classic and the SNES Classic. And at the very bottom I also have another CRT and another HD TV in case I want to bring it somewhere. Then above those are 2 toolboxes. And then there's a few others that are hiding around in various places. Behind the CRT, I have a backup GameCube in case anything happens to mine, and behind the clock, I have a Game Boy Advance and a DSi and a DS Lite. Over next to the PC, I have my 3DS, my PS Vita, and my PSP, and then down next to that toolbox is another PS1. And back in the previous shots, on top of that shelf where I had the snacks and the pillows, there's a Wii on top of that, which was actually the first console I ever owned. Over to the right of all the consoles is where I have my desk set up. This is where my PC, as well as a bunch of arts and crafts and miscellaneous gaming stuff, is stored. This right here is the main surface of my desk. I've actually covered the entirety of it in a cutting mat so that I can use X-Acto knives on it for any kind of arts and crafts, and it also means that any kind of work I do on it isn't necessarily going to damage the desk itself. The mouse I use is the Logitech G602, and the keyboard that I have here is the Falcon Z77. I have my main monitor on top of a stand, that way I can hide my mouse and keyboard underneath there if I need the extra desk space. On the left and right, I have some Logitech speakers, and under the desk is a subwoofer. On the far right over there, I have a Pac-Man light, so that actually just cycles through several colors, and I have that tied to the same switch as the blue LEDs all over my desk setup. On top of the monitor stand, on the left is the Razer Tartarus Chroma, which is a grip that is sort of like a mini customizable keyboard, and it's also a lot more comfortable than just using a keyboard for gaming, at least to me. Then there's some power banks. I have a dial that can control the audio levels, as well as I can plug headphones into it for my speakers. I have some lenses for my cameras. I have a pair of the monitor glasses that reduce blue light, and on the far right is a Bluetooth speaker. Up above my monitors is where I have the Eternal Sword. This is a project based on a recent game that was finished on the Twitch channel, and I actually streamed the process of creating this on Twitch a little under a month ago. I'll leave a link to the time-lapse video in the description. Up on top of my monitors is all of my Legend of Zelda amiibos, and then down by the speakers are all of my Metroid amiibos. And of course, those monitors aren't just running on their own, there's a PC tower right next to them. This is my first PC that I ever got, and it really hasn't been changed since then. It was originally planned and put together in late 2014, early 2015, and I changed the case at one point, but otherwise it's pretty much whatever it was back then. I don't know a whole lot on PCs, so a friend made it for me, but I did know enough to deck it out with a bunch of Nintendo stuff. Over on the right side of my desk is where I keep all sorts of other miscellaneous things that I need to access at short notice. On the main surface of the desk is mostly art supplies, any kind of like writing utensils or anything I might need for any sort of art project or stuff that I'd usually use for working on homework. At the far end is usually just the stuff that I carry around all day, like a watch, necklace, keys, stuff like that. Above that is some scented candles, and on the shelf above that I keep one controller for each console. This is just so that I can easily grab one without shuffling through drawers. Behind that I have several art pieces that I made in high school, and above that is where I keep most of my headphones. On top of the PC case, I have the Amazon Echo, the Oculus Rift, and then my 3 webcams. Under my PC, I have 2 different Bluetooth keyboards in case I want to operate my PC from the couch. I have all of the switches to all the LEDs in the room, and right in front of the PC tower is where I have my microphone. It's on an adjustable arm, so at a moment's notice, I can easily have it in a place where it's usable for VR, recording the entire room, or recording me sitting at the desk. And up on the very top, these are definitely some of my favorite posters ever. Just such awesome pieces of work. Under my desk is even more controllers and arts and crafts related items. I keep some extra controllers here and here. On the far right, I have a bunch of the large poster paper and large sketch pads, tracing papers, stuff like that. And just off camera to the right is actually where I keep a spare chair I can bring out in case we need more seating. And the rest of it is all pretty much just office supplies or a trash bin. And last but not least is the large wall just off to the right. This is mostly taken up by a window, which I have covered in several of my earlier art projects. The first art project kind of in the paper-related medium that I tried was this 8-bit Mario one here, which I quickly tried different styles with the Samus and Link. Back when I watched Markiplier and Jacksepticeye, I made their logos, and then on the left side I have a signed calendar from Markiplier, and the right side I have a signed tour poster from Jacksepticeye. On the ledge is the majority of my game collection. I sort it into several different categories in different parts of the room, but for the most part, this is where the majority of the collection is. Underneath that is a couch. Not the prettiest couch out there, but it's one that for the time being is functional enough for what I need it for. Underneath the couch is where I store several of my tripods, and above the couch I have the remnants of back when I used to collect swords and knives. Most of the collection's been given away at this point, but there's still a few there. And that is all! Thank you for checking out the room tour video. This was a really fun project to work on, and I know a lot of you have been asking me about it for a very, 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 very long time. The thing is, it's not actually over yet. So this was the overview video, where I kind of addressed sections of my room as a whole, but I'm actually making a sequel to this where I answer any questions. Because there's a lot more in-depth I can get with many things in this room, like how VR is set up, how I have my lights hooked up to my Amazon Echo, where I store some of the things that weren't even on screen. And there's a lot more detail I can go into with this, and I've already got a lot of people in the Discord community asking me about things that I didn't mention in this video. And so I'm actually going to start work on a sequel to this video. So anything you'd like to know, more details, or maybe something a bit more specific about something I said, pretty much anything you have that you'd like to know that wasn't quite covered in this video, let me know, and I'm making a sequel video pretty soon after this video comes out. So I hope to answer some of those questions in the next one, but thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.